Hey everybody, my name is Tom and I'm one of the producers of the Better Innovation podcast. Jeff recorded a great interview with Dr. Tommy Weir, the speaker, author, and founder of Enable, which is a company focused on AI-powered leadership. We had such an interesting conversation that time flew by, so we're breaking the interview into 2 episodes for you. Stay tuned for part 1 and look for part 2 of the interview in the coming weeks. Enjoy!
What exactly is it that a leader does at the core level, and what could a machine do better than a man, and what can a man do better than a machine, and how do you get those in the right places?
Better Innovation is hosted by Jeff Saviano, EY Global Tax Innovation Leader. This isn't just about innovation. This is better innovation.
Better Innovation audience. We are joined today in our studio by Dr. Tommy Weir. Dr. Weir is an author, he's a speaker, and he's the founder of a technology company called Enable. That's E-N capital A capital I for AI, artificial intelligence, E-N-A-I-B-L-E. Technology company focused on AI-powered leadership. Dr. Weir has written a variety of books on the topic of leadership, including his most popular Leadership Dubai Style, The Habits to Achieve Remarkable Success. He founded the company in 2018, focusing on the question, what's the relationship between AI and leadership? That led Dr. Weir to build the world's first leadership AI lab. He's going to tell us why he did that and the incredible results he's achieving through AI in his leadership work. He has a team at Enable of data scientists and leadership experts looking at real-time data with employee behavior to help leaders and employers become the best that they can be. I love this episode. Dr. Weir is wonderful. He's doing groundbreaking work. You're going to love this one too. Tommy, welcome to the show.
It's great to be here, Jeff. Thanks for the opportunity.
I really appreciate you coming to our studio today. You're in our Cambridge studio or in our tax lab. This is home for you, so it's nice to be able to do this, all of us in the same city.
Very much so. It's great to not have to travel very far at all.
And in our season 3 on Better Innovation, we are focused exclusively this season on artificial intelligence. You and I met just a few short months ago. We have a mutual friend. He called one day and said, there's this guy, Dr. Tommy Weir, you need to meet Dr. Tommy. We share a fascination, maybe even an infatuation with artificial intelligence. I think our audience is really going to love your story. It's such a compelling story and how you're uniquely focused on artificial intelligence. Let's start with, I'd love for the audience to hear, what's your big idea? What is the application of AI that you're most interested in?
So our usage of it is really, and it comes from understanding my background a bit. I have a doctorate in strategic leadership. I guess if I had to classically describe myself, I would say I'm a leadership nerd. So since my 20s when I started studying it, I've been obsessed with it. And several years ago, which I'm sure we'll get into in a minute, I had this event that put it in the front of my head and started asking this question, what's going to be the impact of AI on leadership? And more specifically, how can AI help leaders become the best they can?
And that's how it started. It started for you, and you come about that, suppose, different ways like we all do. It's incredible. You find yourself at a point in your career. For you, Tommy, it was about, you were first a leadership expert before you became a technologist-enabled leadership focused expert.
Absolutely. I've lived the whole career in the leadership space of coaching CEOs and executives, writing books, giving speeches, kind of doing the things that you would picture in that space. And then one day, unplanned, out of the blue, I guess you could say almost serendipitously, I found myself living in the space of AI and starting almost an entirely new career and life going on simultaneous with it.
Oh, we're going to unpack that. That's going to be so fascinating for our audience to hear. Before we do that, Tommy, I'd love to go back in time. Let's pause for a minute. I'd love for our Better Innovation listening audience to learn a little bit more about you. Why don't we start with where are you from, where'd you go to school, some of the basics.
All right, so I am from Charleston, Illinois, a farm town that happens to be the county seat of smaller farm towns, would be kind of like where I grew up. And then when I was 18, I managed to start finding my way outside of Charleston. I am so thankful for my rearing and the work ethic it taught me. But I discovered in my early 20s that there's a giant world out there, and have been fascinated with getting into that world ever since then.
But didn't forget the upbringing, didn't forget, as you mentioned, the work ethic. We hear that from so many. Grew up in the middle of the country, and as you mentioned, farming communities, how important that is.
Absolutely. Early to bed, early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise. That was beat into me by my dad, who is, I adore his advice still to this day. And then I had the privilege of growing up, I don't know, like a lot of small towns, the only thing we had to do was athletics. And I had great coaches. And
What was your sport?
I would be kind of the on-the-team player of all three sports, and not a whole lot of on-the-field play until my senior year of high school.
Learn a lot, though, right? Learn a lot from
Absolutely.
those
Loved the
situations.
practice.
So, what was it about leadership, and at what point did you become interested in leadership when you went to school? Where did you go to college?
So I did my undergrad at Liberty University and studied just kind of a general liberal studies perspective, is where I came from. And then my story of getting into leadership, I'll say it, although I've just gotten to the point where I'm not embarrassed to say this. I wanted my PhD because I wanted to be a university president, and I knew the PhD was the ticket to getting it.
That was the inclination. That's where you wanted to go with the PhD.
Absolutely. And then I happened to see this program in leadership. It was the first one in the world in organizational leadership, and it was at Regent University, and I was fascinated by this area, and it looked like a fun way to get to my goal of my PhD.
It was still, though, to become a university president.
Absolutely, at that point. That was
So
truly
leadership
my
could
goal.
have been, that was the medium for you to achieve that goal.
Absolutely.
You saw an opportunity. There was a program on leadership effectiveness, and one of the first, it sounds like, of an organized program around how do you improve and how could you help either improve yourself or improve others on being the best leader that they can be. What was it about that drew you to that field?
Just kind of as I was looking through the different disciplines, I'm not exactly sure what drew me to it. I actually think I thought it was going to be the easiest path. Okay, to get to my goal of a
Path
PhD.
of least resistance.
Absolutely. But something happened in the midst of it. In the midst of it, of like truly classically studying leadership and getting into it, I started having inside me this a vision that said, every employee deserves the right to be led by a great leader. And I've kept this quiet till the last year of my life. It's just been kind of in me. And I could see my life shift around this idea and to move from the desire to be a university president. And it's really what got me into the coaching space, into the writing space of a genuine, I want to help leaders become great so the employees have a great leader.
It's an obligation. It is the number one obligation as somebody who's led teams here at EY, that it is ingrained upon us from the earliest days of leading people that at any one time that they all volunteer to come work for you every day. And especially economies like the one that they're in, that they have many different opportunities in life. They could go pursue their interests and their passion many different places. And it really does, there's that shift I think every leader goes through. It's not as much about you anymore, it's about them, and it's about the people that you care for.
Yeah, and I think it has a little bit even to do with, going back to my upbringing, actually I don't think I know, it has a lot to do with, if I were to look through my high school years, I had really great coaches, and then my senior year we had an average coach.
And you felt it.
You
felt
could
that.
feel it in the impact and the difference in going from being a state contender to an average team. And even going from, probably the biggest one to me was going from becoming a better player and a coach who pushed me, although I was never an all-star, but going from a coach who pushed me and made me better and spent time before school and after school, the kind of the average. I've had the chance to interview multiple tens of thousands of employees and leaders over the years, and I find that one of the things that we all can reference is the leader, your manager, that made you better. You always remember that one.
And for you, maybe it's the contrast of seeing a really great leader in a relatively short period of time with a less effective leader. Maybe it was the contrast of the really good and the less effective that stuck with you and said, boy, there's a difference there. There's a difference in how my own performance went up or down based on the leader. Tell us about one of your books. Choose one that you think is your best work or your most, I suppose it's like having children. How could you possibly say one of them is your best and your favorite, but is there one that stands out, Tommy?
Yeah, one of them ended up being relatively award-winning. So I wrote the book on how Dubai became Dubai. So it's called Leadership Dubai Style. I went back to the very beginning, 1833. It's also actually become the #1 history book on the UAE, but I'd never wrote it as a history book. Yeah, and it's fascinating seeing a city that truly came from sand to become what it's become today. And it's a recognized, I mean, for probably every listener here knows who Dubai is. They've heard of it, and you can't say that for every city in the world.
We're going to spend some time on it. It's actually how we met through Dubai Connection, and really want to understand because of their position with artificial intelligence. Maybe we can come back to that issue. But before we go to the Dubai story, let's now come out of your years of working with companies as a leadership coach and helping with leadership effectiveness. And there was a point when you realized that the powerful technology, what artificial intelligence, machine learning in particular, can bring to your field could be quite impactful. Tell us about what led you to the enablement through AI.
One of the chairmen I was working with, he said, hey, let's go to Tokyo and learn about AI. And all I heard in my head was, let's go to Tokyo and eat. I didn't really hear the learn. I did
must
hear,
must be a fun trip. There must be something fun we can do in Tokyo.
Absolutely. I'm like, sure, why not? Let's go to Tokyo. And I really did want to eat in Tokyo. So I was quite enamored with that.
Some senior executive. So you're working with some senior executive.
Like a chairman of a company.
Yeah. So very senior executive who you were working with as leadership coach said, I want to take you to Tokyo around AI.
And let's go learn about AI.
And what was your background with AI at the time?
Nothing. I remember sitting on the airplane getting ready to take off to Tokyo, and I was sitting in my seat and I thought to myself, this is kind of ironic. I don't even believe in AI.
Oh, isn't that wild?
So
what year was this? Paint the picture.
This is October of 2016. So not that long ago.
Yeah, not so long ago.
So I'm thinking, I don't believe in AI. Oh, well, it's going to be a great trip. And I remember the next morning, it ended up being the two of us with 6 professors teaching us. So the odds were not in our favor. We were doing AI in applied space is what we were looking at. So we were in Google's labs, we were in Sony's labs, self-driving cars, physical space,
a tour
hospitality.
Of companies, others, many applications.
Absolutely, just going on. And I remember the first morning, we'd had breakfast and we'd gone to location A, and we were in this van going from A to B, and I'm running my mouth, and the lead guy teaching AI looks at me and says, hey, Tommy, could you shut up? And I thought to myself, probably not. But I said to him, sure, but can you tell me why? He goes, you are so ignorant on this topic. You should learn something before you ask a question.
That's pretty bold.
It was very bold on his part, but it was correct. It was very accurate. And I shut up, and I spent the next 2 days trying to ask more thoughtful, provocative questions rather than why AI is bad and can't work, where my frame was. And I really took it as a chance over the next 2 days to learn.
Good advice, looking back, that you
Phenomenal
received?
Advice. Had he not said that to me, I don't believe I would have had the perspective change I had in the next 48 hours.
It sounds like it opened up your world to understand a bit more.
Absolutely. Enough to where I sat back in my seat 2 days later, flying out of Tokyo, and I'd gone from being an absolute skeptic of AI to a cheerleader.
2 days.
2 days.
What was it? You said you had a bit of a tour. You visited, I'm sure there was some corporate innovation labs, and you saw AI labs where they were applying, like real applied science, applying the science to solving world problems. Is that roughly what you saw over a couple of days?
Yeah, absolutely. We saw the things that would be real trendy, and then we saw things that would be incredibly progressive in MEP space that I would do injustice to explain what was going on. But there were 2 points in there that changed me, and I'm going to do them in reverse order. One of those was an insurance company, a major insurance company, that the machine, the computer, was outselling the human 2 to 1. And I found that really fascinating. And as they began to look at it, what they were seeing is the role that emotion plays in the human and the effect that it has on their performance in a day, whereas the machine can stay at a steady level constantly.
Was the comparison of machine to human the fascinating element, or was it the results, or both?
It was the inner working in the result.
I see.
So when the explanation started talking about the state change that a human can have in a day, so I could be in a good mood and I can perform one way, I could be in a bad mood, perform another way. I could have had a fight with my spouse, I could be tired, my blood sugar could change. Like all of those pieces, I had enough knowledge when I heard this to contextualize what I was hearing. So it wasn't the fact actually that the computer did it. I was much more interested in the movement of the human's work. And then that started the seed in my head, which I'm going to get to the later part of this. What then could the AI do to help the human, not replace the human?
And it wasn't theoretical. This was applied. Presumably, the insurance company, this was not an early stage experiment. They had accomplished impressive results through the application of AI?
They had accomplished impressive results in it. They had just received an investment from a major investor in the world, PE firm, in them and in the company that did the AI for them.
A great lesson for you as a student. You had a short study period, but as a student of AI for those 2 days, what a great and impactful story to understand. It made an impact on you.
Absolutely. And the other was just a passing comment that was made that said, and the computer never forgets, AI never forgets. And this was literally a passing sentence in the midst of a bigger context. And it made me just kind of reflect on my own day and how much of it I'd forgotten. And then all of a sudden, I went straight back to my late 20s when I was doing my doctoral studies, and I thought, well, that's fascinating. I keep going back to texts that I read 20-some years ago, and I need to reread those to recall what I learned of things that I want to use in my everyday life. But the AI, had it read that book, would remember that book.
And were you already in these just a few days, were you already making the connection to your work and this notion of the convergence of the best of us as humans and what we can do, whether it's as leaders in your context or otherwise, and machines? Was that the earliest germination of, I wonder if there could be a way that the machines here, these AI systems, could help in your work?
You do have to understand, when I say leadership nerd, I'm the person that would watch a movie. I'd walk out of the movie and my wife would say to me, what'd you think of the movie? And I would say, did you notice what that leader did? So like my head is kind of, I'm probably not the, if you like leadership, I'm great to hang out with. If you don't, I may bore you a little bit. So as I was hearing all of this, I can't help but anything I learned to try to apply it back in that.
That's just who you are. That's the leader who you are, and it's the coach in you, it's the teacher in you, and there was something about that, you saw something that could help your work. Is not to oversimplify, but something could help you. And one of the things that I've come to learn about you from the time that we spent together and from our mutual friend, that you've been credited as building the world's first AI leadership lab. And so like this application of the best of artificial intelligence with leadership potential, whether it's for yourself or in the coaching, right? Tell us about the lab.
Yeah, so this plays out over the next year and a half. And inside there, I really started wrestling with the question, what's the impact of AI on leadership? What's this going to look like? And I ended up shifting from the impact on to the marriage of.
So less about replacing what we're doing, but as an enabler, which that becomes an important word for you.
Absolutely, and the coming together of, the uniting of the two, how do these come together? And inside they're really beginning to break down what exactly is it that a leader does at the core level, and what could a machine do better than a man? And what can a man do better than a machine? And how do you get those in the right places? And that's really the kind of where we got to on the AI, the Leadership AI Lab.
Thanks for joining us for part 1 of Jeff's conversation with Tommy Weir. Join us next time where Jeff and Tommy focus on how AI can help leaders and employers become the best that they can be. See you next time on Better Innovation with Jeff Saviano.
This has been Better Innovation from EY. Let us know what you think about the show by leaving a review or by reaching out to Jeff at jeffrey.saviano@ey.com or find him on Twitter at Jeffrey Saviano. Better Innovation is produced by the great team at Hogarth Worldwide.